That's a dude.
The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos are children and that a person can be held liable for destroying them.
An Alabama Supreme Court ruling has declared embryos are children, regardless of their location, and entitled to all legal protections just as a fetus in a womb.
The Alabama Supreme Court ruled last Friday that frozen embryos are now considered children under state law. Yep, it said that considering a frozen embryo a child is a, quote, natural, ordinary, and commonly understood meaning of the word. And a lot of people aren't reporting on this, but they also said that there are no rules saying that embryos can't play basketball.
He's right. Ain't no rules to the
Embryos
can't play basketball.
The case involves couples whose embryos were destroyed when a patient removed them from a freezer and accidentally dropped them. The court held that the patient could be held liable in a wrongful death lawsuit. Reproductive rights advocates say the case could have implications for fertility treatments such as IVF and the hundreds of thousands of patients who seek them.
Because apparently these people think that this is an IVF clinic, and this is what caused that lawsuit. Yeah, this is going to have some drastic consequences for people wanting to get IVF.
Rodriguez, like so many others, is currently undergoing fertility treatment.
We're in this very traditional family that just wants to have a kid.
But she's now on edge after the highest court in Alabama decided frozen embryos are children and people can be held legally responsible for destroying them. Rodriguez worries knowing doctors may find some of her embryos not viable.
I don't necessarily want to implant a child that I know is going to miscarry, so what does that mean? My main worry is what are we going to do with the ones that are genetically abnormal, and what does this mean if my clinic shuts down?
So now, not only do they want to just force people to have children who don't want to have children, force people to be pregnant who don't want to be pregnant, now they're saying that people who want to have children can't have children. Because this has never been about abortion. This has always been about controlling women.
We have been wrestling with this decision for 4 days since we found out. We didn't take this lightly, but ultimately our legal team and our embryology team said that we cannot continue IVF care given the significant legal ramifications.
And are there specific procedures you can continue with?
So yes, fertility care is much more wide and diverse than just IVF. So we can certainly continue with inseminations and surgeries and ovulation induction. But our most successful treatment is being paused. That means less babies will be born in Alabama.
And what are your patients saying to you today?
It's heartbreaking. The phone conversations that I've had to have with longtime patients who are desperate and ready to become parents, and I'm having to tell them that I can't offer their treatment that we've agreed to. They're begging us to continue. They're saying, we'll sign anything. Please let us continue with treatment.
And then to make matters even more confusing for providers, the Alabama state legislature quickly passed a bill saying that patients and medical professionals were not to be held criminally liable for IVF treatments, meaning the law stands in direct conflict with the state Supreme Court ruling. And now, at the same time, federally, Republicans in the U.S. Senate blocked a similar bill seeking to protect IVF nationwide. There's so much confusion as a result of their assault on reproductive rights and reproductive freedom. It's the people who say they're all about family values that are now stopping people from being able to start a family. And why would they want to do this? Well, controlling women, but also God.
Even before birth, all human beings bear the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without effacing His glory. If you guessed the Bible, you guessed wrong. That statement was written last week by Alabama State Supreme Court Chief Justice Tom Parker. It was part of his concurring opinion, ruling that the frozen embryos of IVF patients should be considered children.
Saying unborn children are children without exception based on developmental stage, physical location, or any other ancillary characteristics. The concurring opinion quoted scripture.
Because even though the overwhelming majority of Americans strongly support the availability of IVF for couples who are trying to have a baby, there are people who want to take away people's rights because of their rigid understanding of morality and lack of understanding of biology. the ability to start one's own family on their own timeline is a foundational freedom, and we need to protect that. One thing we need to do is start to chip away at this black and white, rigid understanding of morality and of reality. Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you for liking and subscribing and commenting and whatever else you do. I really appreciate it. Put the links down below for the social media as well as the Patreon and the merch. So come on, you can join the party there. The other day I got home from hanging out with some friends, humble brag, and I got in the elevator in my building and I immediately noticed that it smelled like the worst body odor of my entire life. Before the door closed, I saw a group of women walking towards the elevator. At this point, I had to make a choice. Do I hold the elevator door open for them to be polite, resulting in them thinking I was the smelliest person that they had ever smelled, it closed and have them think I'm a rude person who doesn't hold the elevator? I had to choose quickly, so I hit that elevator close door button as fast as I could. And I think it was the right choice. Either way, I lose. I don't come out on top in this situation at all. I don't look good in either scenario. And I know some of you would say, hold the door open for them and let them know where that smell came from and let them make their own decision. They weren't going to believe me. They were going to think it was me. And even if I did tell them, they would have to be polite and sit through it. So I made a decision. Every day we are forced to make moral decisions.
All we need is one moment. Just a little more time, a little unwinding. That one on my mind and I've chosen you. You're like gas on my legs.
Everybody in the world seems to accept that there are things that are actually right and actually wrong. Even if we disagree on what those things are, I've never met anyone who didn't believe that something was actually good, it was actually evil, that there are certain things that are wrong no matter who you are, where you're living, what time period, history you're living. If that's true, how would we know if there really are right and wrong?
Right, wrong, who's to say, really, in the end? I mean, because it is unknowable. Yes, there are laws in every country, there are rules in pretty much every religion, and most people have some sense of right and wrong. But yes, there are certain things that most people agree is wrong.
Hey, that's not the fallen inspector.
If you're not interested in God and a religious person, you don't believe in God or the Bible, how would you know what is right and what is wrong? Because we're people change their minds all the time, and we know a lot of people, a lot of evil in the world. We certainly can't trust an individual to tell us what is right and wrong, and that's a human being.
Of course we can turn to people. It's all we got. When people say, hey, this thing is hurting me, then we stop doing that thing and we apologize for doing it in the first place. That's the simple, basic starting point of morality.
You can't really turn to culture because most of the time, a lot of the time, the culture itself is the thing we're criticizing. We want it to improve. Things are wrong. Science itself cannot really tell us how people ought to act. But the thing tells us, well, how things do work. So where would you turn to find out right and wrong?
It's hard for people to wrap their minds around the idea that moral truth is not a matter of opinion, not a matter of either personal opinion or cultural opinion, group opinion, the opinions of a society or a culture. The idea that these things sit outside of opinion and exist on their own, and they transcend every culture. Could that be true of moral truths? Well, let me just try to give you a quick way to respond to that. I think one thing sometimes people need is an example of something that transcends personal or group opinion. So let's just supersize it, okay? If we said it's never okay to torture babies for the fun of it.
That's a weird example. I'm glad no one else would use that.
Let me agree that one thing is actually wrong, like torturing babies for the fun of it. But only that is wrong.
Okay, well, no, that's his son, so that makes sense.
You can know that, say, torturing babies for fun is wrong and say there's no God. It's just that torturing babies for fun wouldn't be wrong unless there was a God. So,
And I give up. It would be wrong because it would hurt that baby. Because of the trauma it would cause that baby and the person that baby grows up to be. They would probably have anxiety. They would probably grow up to have depression. They would probably grow up to have issues with controlling their anger and could take that out on other people. They could very likely have a substance abuse problem because of this, which would also affect other people and affect their health, all because of what happened to them when they were a baby. It would also cause emotional distress for the baby's parents or the parents of that baby. There are so many reasons why it is not a good thing to torture a baby. That's the simple thing to figure out. And it has nothing to do with whether or not a God exists.
I think that most people would recognize that as an objective, transcendent moral truth claim. In the sense that if you saw somebody or met somebody who said, no, in my personal opinion, it's perfectly okay to torture babies for fun, you would say, dude, you need to get some help. It's not a matter of us trying to convince you that that's so patently obvious on its face.
What could be that thing? Would be the standard? Where did this actually come from? Because we've got to explain it. If we're going to say right and wrong exists, we must explain where it came from. Could it come from something like culture, like just the way we were raised? Well, imagine if we were raised in a different way. Would that make right and wrong different? Could it come from us personally, or does it seem like it just we all know that we've done things that are wrong? I think if right and wrong really existed, never makes things right and wrong must transcend all things.
I got punched by a customer once when I worked at Starbucks. Do you think I needed a divine entity to exist somewhere in the universe or outside of the universe or whatever in order to understand that I was in physical pain and felt humiliated? No, I simply felt that way. Because when his fist hit me, it hurt. It's that feeling, plus the empathy of others, understand why I felt that way, that describes those two things. One person feeling hurt and another person having empathy for that. The problem is, though, that most theists, especially most Christians, but especially most apologists, see morality as this floating thing that's out there, like a law of the universe. Like there is gravity and there is morality. It's not about trying to figure out how to live our lives based on what causes the least amount of pain. It's about this thing, this actual, tangible thing, this concept. This concept that is also like a noun, like a metaphysical, spiritual thing that exists in the universe that is morality. So to them, right and wrong isn't a thing that we created based on saying, hey, if my fist hits you, then you become hurt. And if I give you a gift, you become happy. But right and wrong exists because there is a special law of the universe that determines what is right and what is wrong. So instead of creating rules of ethics and morality, we discover these rules. Like how we aren't inventing scientific discoveries, but rather we're discovering them.
Whether you learn these things as you're growing up or not, like you suggested, or as you read, or whether there's some kind of innate capacity that's built in, that God builds in, that you then experience later. These are all ways of knowing it. It doesn't make the thing itself. That's the ontological question. Where did it come from? That's the question. Where did the scoring system come from? Not how do you know it. What makes the scoring system? That's the key. It's called the grounding.
Whereas someone else might say, hey, we know pain exists, we understand that empathy exists, and we have never demonstrated a God, so maybe we don't jump to that conclusion. I'm installing
standard to feel other people's emotions?
Yes, if by allowing me, of course.
If I say that all soda comes from a soda sweating dragon, I have to first show the existence of a soda sweating dragon.
At least the problem that I see, though, is that atheists can't justify why something is good or bad without reference to a standard outside of humanity, God's nature. So it's not an epistemological question. It's not how do you know right from wrong. It's why is something right or wrong. That's why I keep asking the atheists who are here, why do you say your position is right? By what standard?
If God does not exist, objective moral values and duties do not exist. But objective moral values and duties do exist. Therefore, God exists.
If the soda sweating dragon does not exist, then soda does not exist. Soda does exist. Therefore, the soda sweating dragon does exist.
For the atheist, humans are just accidents of nature, highly evolved animals. But animals have no moral obligations to one another. When a cat kills a mouse, it hasn't done anything morally wrong. The cat's just being a cat.
That's a parable example. That mouse is that cat's food. We also eat meat. And a good majority of human beings think that is perfectly fine. We debate the ethics of eating animals.
Vivian, 5-in-1 complete care. Everything you need for glowing, healthy-looking skin. Thank your skin for growing and supporting you. Vivian Nourishing Body Milk in 5-in-1 complete care. Built it needs to be nourished, beautiful, and healthy-looking. Give your skin all it deserves. Vivian.
That's exactly that. It's a debate. Because now, human beings have positioned themselves in a way that we don't actually need meat to survive necessarily. But killing an animal to survive is a much different question than someone with a fully developed human brain deciding another human being for the insurance money or for whatever other reason. We can easily understand why that is wrong without requiring a God. And if you don't know why that's wrong, it's very simple. It's because I don't want to be murdered for the insurance money, so I'm not going to murder another person for the insurance money. Even though, Sam, I do have an insurance policy out on you, I will not use it. If Sam goes missing, we can easily understand that without requiring a God.
If God doesn't exist, we should view human behavior in the same way. No action should be considered morally right or wrong. The problem is, good and bad, right and wrong, do versus our sense experience convinces us that the physical world is objectively real. Our moral experience convinces us that moral values are objectively real. Every time you say, hey, that's not fair, that's wrong, that's an injustice, you affirm your belief in the existence of objective morals.
So a guy stole a phone after another guy fell. Sucks. Shouldn't have done that. But also, what if that guy stole that phone because he knew that there was a code on it that could stop a nuclear attack? Then it's probably good that he stole it.
We've searched the whole building, Golden Face. Where is the bomb? We've searched the... Okay. He said we've searched the whole building, Golden Face. Now where is the bomb?
But Christianity and the Bible tries to make everything black and white. The Bible had top 10 lists of things you weren't supposed to do. It had laws and books of laws and lists of laws. And then Jesus was like, it's not just about the law, it's about doing unto others what you would have them do unto you. But also here's a bunch of laws. And then Paul had a bunch of rules and a bunch of laws. They constantly try to boil down everything we can do to a list of rules.
I am going to get a lot of hate for this video, but hands down, this is the all of the Bible. In Ephesians 5, verses 3 to 5, it makes a list of 7 types of people who will not make it to heaven. And then it goes on to say this about that group of people. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things, the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Why is this so scary? Because right now there are people in hell as we speak who listened to the deception of other people. Here's what
You see, it's a list of rules, and the consequences for disobeying that list aren't to say that, hey, if you do these things, you will hurt people, and we don't want to hurt people. The consequence is after you die, you will burn in hell. You will burn for eternity.
But when you introduce an ethic like Christianity, which says that you must love your neighbor as yourself, and that you must care for the vulnerable and the poor, and that you must exercise justice and prudence in all of your affairs and all of your dealings, and that if you don't, there will be eternal consequences for that. That's a pretty powerful dissuasion from the kinds of things that would typically disrupt community living.
Yes, but also the fear of hell made people hang people they believe to be witches. It makes parents force their teenagers to get married because they got pregnant, or force their gay or trans kids out of the house to become homeless and vulnerable for human trafficking because the parents don't want to be seen as approving of their lifestyle. So many evil acts have been done because people fear the consequence and they don't want to burn in hell. Not to mention that the concept of hell is immoral in itself and cannot come from the same being that is supposed to be the creator of morality itself. Christians struggle with understanding morality as an absolute when we know that there are gray areas.
It doesn't mean that we have every detail of morality figured out. How about when the Nazi comes to your door? Right? What do you do then? Hast du Juden hier? You've got Jews upstairs, and you're at it. Schnell, kommen Sie hier! Hast du Juden hier? You do. They're right there. Don't lie. Tell the truth to a murderer? What are you going to do? I know what I do. Lie. Why? Because when absolutes conflict, and Christians can disagree on this, but I'm just giving you my view. When absolutes conflict, the greater obligation takes precedence over the lesser obligation. You have a greater obligation to protect life than to tell the truth to a murderer.
My grandfather lived in occupied Holland during World War II, and he built a living space under his barn to hide Jewish people. He also ran a very successful black market by selling things that he would steal from the German bases. He was a Christian man and continued to be very Christian until the day he died, but he never saw anything wrong with what he did there, because there was nothing wrong with what he did there. In Canada, our food prices and rent are soaring right now due to greedy corporations. So if I see someone walk into a store, take some food, and walk out with that food, no, I did not. Trumps the right of a billionaire to make a few more bucks.
What if lying is ethical in this situation? What if certain actions aren't universally good or bad, like Jonathan Dancy says?
Jonathan Dancy, are you talking about moral particularism? We never even covered that. You read on your own.
You think just because I'm a straight hottie, I can't read philosophy for fun?
For example, is it okay to steal? Well, if you're stealing the code that someone's trying to use to kill 1 million people, I suppose you can probably find a way to justify.
See, all that
we in Scripture know that if you're trying to repel an attack, that someone's trying to kill you, you can do certain things you wouldn't be able to do otherwise and morally justified. If you're trying to save the lives of innocents, you are able to do certain things you would not be able to do otherwise. But if I simply add to the end of the claim, is it ever okay to steal for the fun of it? Now I've removed all the justifications. I'm not stealing so I can save innocent lives. I'm not stealing so that I won't be killed. I am stealing now for the fun of it. I've removed all the justifications. Now you've found the moral, objective claim at the base of the claim itself.
Okay, but for the fun of it is still a justification. It's a bad justification, and we are in the right to condemn that person. It's still a justification. Because no action has the same reason every time we do it, which is why we have to see things as nuanced, and we have to understand things on a case-by-case basis. Killing someone because they were mean to you, or because you get money from insurance if they die, or because they witness you commit a crime, or because you think it's fun, are all justifications, but they're not justifiable reasons to not get jail time. We also understand that just because something is the right thing to do doesn't mean it's a good thing. You have the right to kill someone to protect your family. That is the right thing to do. but it's not a good event. It's still going to be traumatic for you and for your family. It's the better option than allowing the person to kill you and your family, but there are still consequences. You're still going to be going to therapy for a very long time. Everything ever has nuance, and nothing is perfect because perfection does not exist. So there is no reason to believe that a perfect creator is behind anything.
And the hierarchy exempts you from the lower obligation. You can think of a hierarchy like this. We have the greatest obligation to God, the next obligation to people, and the final obligation to things.
The problem here is that a lot of things get lumped into that obligation to God part. If you are able to convince yourself that what you are doing is for God, then you have yourself the ultimate permission slip. This is how good church-going folks justified bombing abortion clinics. This is how loving people justify disowning their children because of who they love. This is why your uncle can post the most disgusting, bigoted rant on Facebook and still think he is a holier person than you.
You're racist against whites. You're racist against whites.
A very simple four-step process. Now, this is fleshed out in my book called Right from Wrong, where I walk you through illustration after illustration applying these 4 steps. First, you're faced with a decision. Consider the decision. Consider the choice.
Okay, I have a choice. Okay, choice. Yeah, I can do this. Choice. Let's see. Do I or do I not throw hot coffee on a barista because it's too hot to drink and that upsets me?
That's a tough decision.
Number 2, compare it to God.
Okay, God killed people in the Bible with fire, and he sends all non-believers to hell after they die, and coffee is hot, but not as hot as hell. So I'm actually being kinder than God, which if you can be kinder than God, then that's got to be the most kind. So yeah, I say let's do it. Throw in that coffee.
Number 3, and this is where most people fail, commit to God's way. Now, here's the problem. If you make a right choice there, you can have immediate negative consequences. If you make a wrong choice, you get immediate positive consequences. Remember, we talked about that. Right choices lead to negative consequences immediately, not in the long run. And wrong choices lead to right consequences. So you must make that decision to commit to God's way.
So I have a negative consequence for throwing hot coffee on a 16-year-old barista by getting arrested for assault. But the good consequences will come later, and I must trust God.
And then 4, count on his blessings. Consider the choice to God's way, and then count on his blessings.
Think about that. You ought not steal from somebody. It's an obligation. You ought not do this. And obligations are always between persons.
You are a thief of joy.
Think about that. I could punch a table. There's no moral content there. But if I punch my neighbor, there's a moral issue there. Because moral obligations are not between inanimate objects. They're between persons. You are not morally obligated to physics. Physics cannot provide you with moral obligations. Moral obligations cannot be grounded in physics because moral obligations are grounded and exist between persons. Therefore, if there are objective, transcendent moral obligations, who is the objective, transcendent moral person to whom we're obliged? That's the problem. You cannot get these kinds of obligations in a universe that's governed by physics, but you could get these kinds of moral truths in a universe governed by a personal being who is the standard of moral truth.
Whose table is it? Are you damaging that table? Are you punching the table because you are trying to intimidate your wife because you want to keep her afraid? What if you found out your neighbor has been hurting his kids and that's why you're doing it? Or he's been hurting your kids? Is it okay to punch him then? These are things we have to consider because absolutes don't exist. Maybe it's easier to say that we are just figured out when there is no moral authority. There is no physical thing that is morality.
Western civilization has been able to exceed the limitations that no other civilization has ever been able to do throughout all of human history. And I think that the reason for that is that in the place where most civilizations get to and stall out, Christianity was able to provide a harmonious, holistic set of ethics that helps people rally together in communities that would prosper beyond anything else we've ever.
I'm not quite sure how anyone can say something like that without seeing how it's dripping in white supremacy. The argument might as well be, I can't acknowledge that Western civilization colonized and pillaged and destroyed other cultures, stealing everything along the way. I can't acknowledge that civilizations who do things differently than Western civilization can still be strong, flourishing civilizations. Or that he simply thinks that Western civilization is the only developed part of the world. But let's break this all down. Christianity says that we know right and wrong exist as a force that can't be broken, like physics. That because it exists, it means that God exists. And since God exists and He is the creator of this morality, His opinion is the first thing we should consider when making a decision. It creates a whole lot of black and white thinkers who you can't have a conversation with about any topic, because changing minds based on new information is not a thing they can do. They can't wrestle with moral dilemmas because there's no such thing as a moral dilemma. Everything has an answer.
That is ethically questionable.
So let's take a moment and see how that plays out in a couple different moral dilemmas. For the first one, let's go with the question, should parents spank their kids? A lot of people would start off by saying, I was spanked and I'm fine. Okay, so first, no you aren't. Second, that's not how you determine if something is beneficial. Sure, maybe you turned out fine and all the things that aren't fine are for other reasons. But that doesn't mean on average, people who are spanked as kids turn out as good or better than those who weren't spanked. When looking at this idea as a parent, you may say, hey, let's look at the facts. Let's look at what psychiatrists are saying. Let's look at what the latest studies are saying about what is the best way to discipline your children and if spanking is a beneficial or a harmful thing for kids.
Looking out the window, that's a bedlin. Staring at my sandals, that's a bedlin.
New study shows children who are spanked are more likely to defy parents, have more aggression, antisocial behavior, and mental health problems.
Academy Pediatrics advising parents strongly against spanking their children. In a new policy statement published just yesterday in the journal Pediatrics, the group advises parents to use what they call healthy forms of discipline.
It seems like every year we've talked about this. There seems to be yet another study when it comes to spanking your kids. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it harmful? The most recent one out of the University of Missouri, and it says it can have negative impacts as far as 10 years later.
But in Christianity, morality is seen as fixed, and the Bible is understood as fixed. So when you look at an issue like, should I spank my child, you usually already know what to do because your church has been drilling it into your head your whole life, and you were probably told what the answer was in your Christian marriage counseling. And the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child, so you don't have to think about it at all. You just do it.
Assuming that we have a fair home and are raising the kids gently, Paul says we must discipline. And the Greek word is what we refer to as corporal punishment or spanking, by a few swats on the fleshy bottom of a child.
That I think giving them chances before you start getting physical is the way to go. So we'll tell them, all right, you gotta stop. And if they don't stop, then I say, okay, if you don't stop right now, I'm gonna spank you.
But, big but.
Big butt, like from that rap song. Nice.
You have to follow through. Don't say, I'm going to spank you, and then they do it again. You're like, if you do it again, I'm going to spank you, and they do it again, you do it again. Like, no, if you say, I'm going to spank you, if you do it one more time, you do it.
Yeah.
Because you want them to believe you. You don't want to be warning them over and over.
And we've been spanking them with a spoon. We don't do it very often. I would say on average, like once a week or something. You think? Or more.
God uses suffering to discipline his children, so do we. Now, you don't damage a child. You don't like that and make a big black eye or break his arm. Children have little fat bottoms so that they can be whopped.
Who is letting this man talk on the internet? Who's setting up cameras for this man? Stop it!
That we've taken from God's word, and God has instructed us because you're going outside of the circle of protection. that we can use the rod to drive you back in so that you understand this is what happens to sinners who don't repent. This is a small, teeny, tiny taste of eternal forgiveness. So if you continue to be a rebellious child, you can look forward to an eternal spanking.
I don't like this. I don't like this one bit.
Proverbs chapter 23, verse 13 says, "Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish him with the rod, he will not die." In the context of verses 13 and 14, die means experience spiritual death in hell. Children who respect authority and feel sorrow for their sin are much more likely to ask Jesus to forgive them and be saved.
Yeah, beat the fear of hell into them. That'll make them a wonderful, well-adjusted adult. The point is that these people don't wrestle with these ideas. They have their answers. They believe everything is set in stone. Hey, Chuck,
Yes, sir.
So now let's take a look at gay marriage and same-sex relationships. A person who wants to make an ethical, morally sound decision on whether or not to support someone who is fallen adult and wants to spend the rest of their life with that person. They ask themselves, who does this for? And then quickly realize that it's nobody and say congratulations and where you register for gifts.
Oh, look, I can accept the fact that he's gay, but why does he have to slip a ring on this guy's finger so the whole world will know? Why did you marry George? We loved each other. We wanted to make a lifetime commitment, wanted everybody to know. That's what Doug and Clayton want too. Everyone wants someone to grow old with, and shouldn't everyone have that chance?
It's someone who has a fixed understanding of morality based on what their church believes and what they think the Bible says. They go on a stupid rant about rainbows and colors.
Well, a rainbow, which of course signifies God's promise to us in the Noahic covenant that we read about in Genesis 9. That's what everyone is celebrating, right? That's what all the rainbows are about.
Just a reminder, that's the covenant he made after murdering a bunch of us because we harbored too much. It is a covenant that says that he won't murder us the same way.
Oh, right. Something a little bit different because the real rainbow has 7 colors and the pride rainbow has 6 colors. Of course, now they add all the other silly colors on there. But it's always been that distinction, which I think is actually pretty significant considering that 7 means completion and perfection in the Bible, and that is the sign of faithfulness that God gives us in Genesis 9. So,
not that. The real rainbow has all the colors. It's a spectrum of light. They chose 7 colors, but it really has red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet because we saw 7 as the number of completion. We use 6 colors now because we see that as the 3 primary colors and the 3 secondary colors. It's not a conspiracy. It's just colors. They're just
Brothers and sisters, I'm going to say this as lovingly and as gently, but as firmly as I can. There is no scenario that exists where any Christian should ever attend a gay wedding under any circumstance, no matter what, doesn't matter whether you're a grandson, doesn't matter whether it's your own child, you love, there is no scenario that exists. It does not matter. Biblically speaking, a Christian should never attend a wedding from a gay prostitute. And I'm going to give you prime reasons on that.
Look into the obligation to God for if you are healed from the same being that is supposed to be the creator of morality and so Christians struggle with understanding morality. Sweating dragon does exist.
The atheist believes in just accidents of nature, primeval animals, endless or relations to one another.
passengers. It's all delivered with a 2-year trial of Mazda Connected Services and an unlimited mileage warranty. Upgrade to Mazda and test drive the service idea at your Mazda retailer today.
Delivering the latest news, weather, and road reports every 15 minutes. You can count on it. Mornings with Andrew Carter, CJ 8800.
Well, good morning, Trudy. How are you today? Fantastic. Did you get your ham yet for Easter?
Not yet.
Really? Is there a ham famine or something, or is it just you haven't found?
I just haven't gone shopping. Haven't done my run. Had to go through my radar yesterday.
Okay, and where's the ham?
I think I'm gonna be at Walmart.
Walmart ham. I'm sorry for you. Okay, so let's so while you're there are two opinion pieces in the Gazette today about Ryan Mulroney.
Clifford Lincoln, former MNA and former MP, writing he was impressed by the civility and the respect shown in the tributes to Ryan Mulroney. He says it was refreshing to see people of all political stripes acknowledging what they felt were highlights in Ryan Mulroney's legacy. And then Marlene Jennings, a noted former Liberal MP, how I came to admire Mulroney, and she's telling a tale about how she came to assess the man even after the House of Commons Standing Committee on Ethics. She was a member, heard about that Caroline Schreiber envelopes of cash thing. And she said she was rarely heard a more honest and sincere statement of regret from anyone in my life. Mulroney openly admitted to lapses in judgment and felt deeply hurt at the damage done to his reputation and integrity, saying my biggest mistake in life by far was ever agreeing to be introduced to Caroline Schreiber in the first place.
In the National Post, Anthony Housefather, the MP for Mount Royal, says this is not the Canada he loves.
Yes, he says the feeling of abandonment as a Jewish person and a Zionist is rampant. And he, in his communities, calling on governments of all levels, police, universities, all others that have failed Jews this far to work together to act. Support for police action as police and not bystanders at pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Prosecuting criminal offenses where warranted. Codes of conduct at university properly dealing with escalating anti-Semitism. Action is needed, not just empty words. And he's talking, and he backgrounds his thinking as a Zionist and explains what he and many other Jews feel about how Canada has responded to the Israel-Hamas war.
Patrick Legacy in the press on the actual risk to eyesight for vehicles.
0.00047% of eye patients is where he's getting, staking out his argument. This is based on the fact that 250 million Americans took in a solar eclipse in 2017, and there were fewer than 100 cases of eye problems reported after that. So that's where he comes up with the 0.00047% of having. He's laying out the argument that Quebec has been, as a government and school systems, have been overreacting to the danger posed by the eclipse. And we did see this week, actually, the education minister coming out and clarifying to schools saying, listen, well-supervised activities outdoors, yes, please hold those. Don't, shy away from holding those. So we'll see what the schools eventually do. A lot of schools have already decided that they're keeping their kids at home that day. It doesn't look as though any would be thinking about reversing that decision.
And Richard Martineau, the Journal de Montréal, one of his favorite topics, wokeism.
Yes, he's been banging on about that for a while now, and how he is opposed to wokeism, asking if it's the beginning of the end, pointing to a couple of flags, including a report that was done for the British Ministry for Women and Equality, saying that government and business should abandon equity programs because they're a terrible waste of money and aren't actually effective. Instead of helping people live together better, they're dividing communities and creating resentment.
Rudy, thank you. You're a superstar. That's pretty amazing. 646, let's take a look at your ride-in CJ 8800 traffic. Debbie Marcellos.
Andrew, we have a towing operation Highway 20 westbound through Ville St. Pierre and the exit for the Mercier Bridge that is just wrapped up. The traffic is moving well on the westbound 20. It's the eastbound side that'll slow, but only in Dorio and Ile Perot as the traffic on the eastbound Trans-Canada backs up before St. Charles Avenue to board the Illentour Bridge in from Vaudreuil. On the 13th southbound and from Laval, it's heavy from Boulevard Le Capitole down to, rather, there in Saint Martin, down to the Henry Bourassa area on 13th southbound. Laurentian southbound is clear through Boulevard Le Capitole. It slows in Montreal, though, from Henry Bourassa to the Metropolitan, and sluggish now on the Met westbound from Saint Michel area all the way into Décarie. Northbound Décarie from Jean Talon, and then from the South Shore slowing on the upramp for the Mercier Bridge on Road 138, which backs up to the 207 and the 132. At Sports Experts, buy more, save more until Monday. Get an instant discount of 10, 15, or 20% on your spring purchases. Minimum spend required. Details in stores. Let us know what you see on the roads. Call in your tips to Star 800. Your next report at 7 o'clock.
647, 9 degrees under a mainly cloudy sky today. It's only 7 right now. Trudeau International Airport. And this, CJ Division, James Lester.
Oh, hey, morning, Ashford Police. They're trying to figure out what happened at 5 o'clock this morning. What we know is there were 3 calls to 911, all within a couple of minutes. So there were 2 vehicles targeted by gunfire, not really close on. There was a 3rd vehicle that also slammed into a tree. It's believed that the wrecked car was involved in one of those shootings. Because they're still trying to sort this out. Canada's chief public health officer urging everyone to ensure that their vaccinations are up to date because measles cases in the country are on the rise. And I love this one. Possible moonshine case was found under a racetrack in North Carolina. Look at that.
Lady Gaga is celebrating her birthday today. She is 38 years old. NFL quarterback Derek Carr is 33. And actor Vince Vaughn is 54. Celebrations. It's whoa. Celebrations at CJ80.com. To Julian Wainkamp, wishing her parents a very happy 60th wedding anniversary. Love from Judy and Stephanie and the families. And Nancy, happy birthday! Your day is as amazing as you are. Lots just been a dedicated listener to CJ80 for years from them. Like, it's just Stacy Merriman, a strong, loving, and caring woman whose heart is so full of gratitude and passion for the family. Love you and cherish her. Hope you cherish your day today. Love from your family. Wishing you a sweet, funny, and awesome son of Brother Asher happy birthday. Love Dad, Brother Ethan. And Alan Reddick. Happy 1 day late birthday, Grampy. We will celebrate you at Gregoire's tonight. Cheers to another year putting up with us. Governor Jan Kim March. Would you like to win $100 to spend at Plastic Guest with you? This keep running. This family and me. Just call 514-790-0800 and get through the lady almost.
The Andrew Carter Morning Show brought to you by Matelas Banal. Now save up to 20% off selected mattresses and sleep accessories. Your best night's sleep is just a click away at matelasbanal.ca.
Montreal's only real live sports and sports talk. TSN 690. Suzuki Center. It's open to the rocket floor. You need to know. When you need to get it off your chest. It's that type of game, honestly, against a team like that one. That gives me reason. It makes me believe in something
competitively around the team. Montreal's Major League Sports Talk lives on TSN 690.
At BDC, we know being an entrepreneur means always being ready to take on challenges and seize opportunities. Get up to $100,000 with our small business loan to make your projects a reality. Simple, quick, and with no application fees, the BDC online loan offers you flexibility to protect your cash flow with favorable repayment terms. Apply now at bdc.ca/online loan. Certain conditions apply. BDC, financing, advising, know-how. Hey adventurers, need luggage for your next trip? Right now, Bentley is offering incredible deals on luggage, carry-ons, backpacks, and travel gear, up to 40% off. Swing by one of our stores or cruise over to shopbentley.com. Your next adventure is calling.
Inspiring Entrepreneurs by BDO Canada is celebrating its 15th season, delivering wisdom and valuable advice every week from entrepreneurs like Dan Amarani, Director Sales and Strategic Partnerships at ARC Group Benefits. We'll hear about their second-generation family business and tech platform, plus changes to Quebec sign laws, what you need to know. Join me, Dan Delmar, with BDO Canada's Euros will linkage in for Mike Newton for Inspiring Entrepreneurs Montreal, Saturday at noon on News Talk Radio CJAD 800 and on iHeartRadio or wherever you find your podcasts.
So many Quebecers suffer from back pain, which, when left untreated, can result in a loss of quality of life. The Quebec Chiropractors Association invites you to learn more. Visit chiropractic.com for more information about the practice. You can find tips and advice for daily activities and where you can find the chiropractor closest to you. Be well informed, prevent injuries, live your life to the fullest. Pain changes everything. Chiropractic care changes pain.
My garage is stacked to the rafters. We made John disappear. $1, $2.97? No. I've got way more junk than that. Our train haul of 7 times as much as a pickup truck. If your garage fills up your entire truck, it'll be as much as $597. Come and make this junk disappear. All you have to do is breathe.
1-800-GOT-JOHN.
Or visit 1-800-GOT-JOHN.com.
We make precision tires. We get to know the people who use them. We travel with them. Take every pothole, road throws at them. So whether it's, wow, these roads are so smooth that my children are great to sleep tires, or the 2 kids fighting over a bag of ketchup chips in the backseat when one chip flies in front of your face, causing you to suddenly pull over and take a deep breath while asking for tires. Ask for Yokohama, made precisely for you.
For the launch of the season, Trevi offers you 1,000 of 1 promotions, like the Evolution in-ground pool at $6,000 off. The fully equipped full above-ground pool at only $2,798, up to 30% off the new garden furniture collection. 1,000 good reasons to take care of yourself with the Lotus Spa, starting at only $6,999, and 0% interest for 2 years on everything in store.
Trevi, laps ahead.
Academy Award winner Kate Winslet stars in the new HBO original limited series, The Regime. Court an expression of peace and love. The Regime, stream now, only on Crave. Plans starting at $9.99 a month. Subscribe at crave.ca. Hey Nissan, please tell me about the 2023 Aria 100% electric crossover.
Great! All you need to know is 0.
0?
Yep, 0. As in a lease rate of 0%.
0%? You have 100% of my attention.
Lease the 2023 Nissan Aria Platinum e-Force all-wheel drive at 0% for 36 months.
Wow, you just went from 0 to hero in 30 seconds.
Until April 1st on approved credit, conditions apply. Details at Nissan.
It's important to unite to create a more sustainable future. That means Energia is working to implement more solutions that are more responsible to be more efficient and emit less greenhouse gases. The hope is that more and more people create and use more renewable energy and consume less fossil fuels, because it's my joint forces that we can consume less and can do more to use less. You get it. We're all part of the answer to building a more sustainable future. Energia. Imagine energy differently.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, an iHeart radio station. Apparently, we want to say congratulations to U13A for winning both the EHL season and for winning the playoff championship yesterday. They're headed to the regionals. Hello, parents. Diane is on the line. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning.
How's life in Laval?
Life is great.
Now, I
That's right, you have your son, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you have plans for Easter weekend?
I was having my whole family over.
Yeah, how many in your family?
Yes, but I have my brothers, and we're going to be 11.
Oh, nice. What are you having?
Well, turkey.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, we're
You
good.
like ham?
Nobody likes ham. I don't like ham either. One weird word, two definitions. Pick the right one, then win. We call it the radio dictionary. The word today is bedizen. Bedizen. Sarah, what does bedizen mean?
Bible is a very for Christians.
Alex Newhook with 11 of 16 in the Peso Circle Net win in Colorado on Tuesday on the road trip. Newhook was 41 of 65, just over 63% of the God with 5 wins. Tonight, it's Montreal and Philadelphia with the Flyers in 10 on a 2-game losing streak. Montreal and Philadelphia tonight at 7 on TSN 6-9. Extended their point streak to 8 games with a 3-1 win over Boston. Tampa Bay holds the first wild card of the Stanley Cup postseason, the Eastern Conference, and they move within 2 points of the Toronto Maple Leafs for third. Welcome to opening day. The Toronto Blue Jays open their Major League Baseball season later this afternoon with a road game against Tampa Bay. Toronto's Jose Berrios will start for the Jays as Toronto plays 10 road games before their home opener April 8th against Seattle. Number 1 overall seed UConn has looked unbeatable so far during its bid to become the first school since 2007 to win back-to-back NCAA tournament titles. Its next hurdle in the Sweet 16 is a rematch with 5th-seeded San Diego State, which the Huskies beat in last year's title game. The other regional semifinal features a matchup between a 2nd-seeded Iowa State team that has the best offensive rating against number 3 seed Illinois. There you go, Andrew. Ahead on Thursday. That's a look at your sports.
Thank you. It's 7 o'clock in Montreal. Coming up after your 7 o'clock CTV news update, James Foster will take an update on the bridge collapse in Baltimore and what's ahead. And it's turned out to be a long, long story. And Kelly Alexander on entertainment.
This newscast brought to you by Electrica, now partnered with Financing. Offer fast, easy financing for your home, HVAC, and electrical purchases. Electrica with a K.ca. Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. I'm
James Foster with your CTV News updates. Mainly cloudy skies today. We are going to still see some sunshine. It's going to be a nice day. We got some real nice days ahead as well. It is 7 degrees downtown. Your weather details in moments. Here's what is making news. Police investigating what looks to be a wild 15 minutes at 5 a.m. CAQ says no thank you to the Prime Minister's housing announcement and uncovering a moonshine cave. All that and more coming up. First, the latest from your CJAD 800 traffic center in Marcellus.
It's a busy drive already in front of Vaudreuil, backing up before St. Charles Avenue on the eastbound Trans-Canada as you merge into one lane on the inlet towards Van, and that means slow and steady traffic through Dorio and Hillsborough on the 20 eastbound, backing almost to Highway 30. Then it moves well through the West Island on the T-Can and the 20 in from the South Shore. Mercier Bridge busy on both approaches, and the Champlain Bridge backs up from Peltier. Metropolitan West slow and steady from Blackboard Air into Decarie, backs up on Laurentian South now from Salaberry, 13 south backs into Laval, from Playroux down to the Bisson Bridge, and traffic on Côte d'Elias westbound. We're off to the service road between Cavendish and Monte d'Elias. That is ongoing road work that we'll see till the end of the year. This year, Viagra celebrates 25 years in Canada. Brand name Viagra is virtually the same price as generics. So if you prefer to receive the brand, simply tell your pharmacist. Traffic and transit every 15 minutes on CJAD 800. Your next report at 7:15.
In the news, Montreal police have a major operation underway this morning as investigators try to piece together the puzzle that is the violent events that took place around 5 o'clock this morning. First call coming in after a man says a vehicle sped past him and opened fire on the market in Rosemont. Man was injured in the upper body. He is okay, though. Maybe 1 minute later, a second call came in. This one also reporting gunshots fired at another vehicle. This happening though on St. Joseph here in Richelieu in the Layout area then at almost the exact same time.
She says she's concerned not enough school-aged children have been adequately vaccinated against the highly. The timing of the doses varies from province and territory. Generally, kids get their first doses of measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine at 12 to 15 months of age, and then a second dose before they start school. These reports may confess.
Sports to say News TV. ICTV News Update is at 7. Be the first to know why CJAD 800 state legislation that would affect unmarried parents who are in common law relationships. The Justice Minister said the aid is for children in the event their parents split up. Get it first on Instagram and Twitter. Email to your inbox and on News Talk Radio. CJAD 800. So we're learning more and more about I didn't even know there were black boxes on these. I mean, but they were covered in Baltimore disaster earlier this week. Take a look at that in just a moment. Forecast looks pretty great. I think it's nice and steady. It's what we like, staying like very steady for the days. 9 degrees for the daytime highs, pretty well right through the weekend. And just below zero at night. We're looking at a mainly cloudy day today. And 9 degrees and more sunshine into the weekend. Right now it's 7 degrees under a mostly cloudy sky. That's just it. 6 degrees. Mostly cloudy sky. And Juneau, the wind has died down a little bit now from the west at 15 kilometers an hour. Also coming up this half hour on entertainment, Kelly Alexander and why Michael Jackson's 3 children were out together.
Sweet days are here at Dormy Boo. With not just 1, but 3 days of fantastic prices on mattresses, pillows, bedding, and so much more. It's a thrilling, breathtaking, exhilarating event that will help put you right to sleep. And this Friday to Sunday only, we pay both taxes. Get 50% off everything. Plus, get a free flush robe with minimum purchase. See in store or online for full details.
Take your business to the next level with a TV commercial. CreativeServices.ca can help for less than CTV. Now, let us get you there. Visit CreativeServices.ca.
Visit Viagra celebrates Beauty Month here in Canada. And Viagra is virtually the same price as generics. So if you prefer to receive the brand, other provinces.
Are you considering a career change or looking to improve your professional skills? John Abbott College's continuing education programs are recruiting now. Interested in front-end design? Then you would enjoy the graphic design program. Prefer programming? Discover the full stack developer program. Tuition-free programs are starting in April. Don't wait. Visit continuingeducation.johnabbott.qc.ca to register.
Are you experiencing blurry vision, eye strain, or headaches from staring at screens all day? Concerned about AMD? Protect your eyes with Univex Blueberry Strong. Blueberry Strong nourishes your eyes with lutein and concentrated wild Swedish blueberries. Superior concentration of color pigments and antioxidants. Improve the eyesight, prevent vision, reduce eye strain. That's why Blueberry Strong is Scandinavia's #1 selling eye supplement. Shop for Drugmart, Walmart, Long Plus, Shoulder Tube, and London Drugs. Find at Amazon and Nordic.ca.
Until the hand surgery is complicated, the truth is that most procedures to cure hand pain are simple, quick, relatively pain-free, and our patients typically return to their activities within a week. Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Duran, board-certified hand surgeon at MontrealHandSurgery.com. If you suffer with carpal tunnel syndrome, Dickerson's disease, trigger finger, or any other conditions, our patented micro-incision techniques will get your hands back into shape quickly and without needing a blood. Let me give you a helping hand at MontrealHandSurgery.com.
Days are here at Dormy Boo. With not just 1, but 3 days of fantastic
correspondent Aaron Real is looking at what we're learning about what caused a container ship over in now it's clean up repercussions of this pipeline. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I didn't know the boats had a black box like planes do. What are they looking at when finding this black box?
Yes. So I'm finding this black box. We want to know exactly what happened to the dolly that caused it to drive into the piling for the Francis Scott Bridge in the Baltimore Harbor. So what we do know thus far, for sure, is that the dolly was previously involved in an incident in Antwerp. This is a Singapore flagged vessel that was being chartered by Maris, the shipping company, and we know that it struck
Let's take a look at your ride at Chevrolet C88 under traffic. You're stepping yourselves. Remy, you are brought to you by Westmile. Luxury rental condos in New York. Take advantage of this great promotion. Includes free rental. Visit the Westmile.ca.
Thanks, Andrew. We have some congestion on the South Chicago 3 heading eastbound between Highway 10 and Eastbound because of the calming operation. South Chevrolet Bridge slowing just after Castro. And that's up from the Big Oval and 138 approach to the RCA Bridge. And heavy on that westbound from what I'm hearing today, carry backing up into the Val
Coming up, managing the measles outbreak. 6 degrees right now. On mainly cloudy day and a high of 9. Pretty basic. We'll see you.
Good morning, Anderson. Trying to sort out all the details from a series of events around 5 o'clock this morning. 2 shootings were reported via 911 around the same time, and a car crash. And that car crash, it has been confirmed, was fatal. 3 people on board, 1 person confirmed, and there are reports a second occupant has died as well. And Henry, the car crash may have been related to one of the shootings. So all of this transpiring last 2 hours or so. We have a story in the news about some school boards in Ontario filing a huge multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against all big social media platforms, accusing them of being reckless and negligent in terms of students' mental health. We have a story about a possible link between how much water everyone doesn't have each day.
Really? Okay, so we're not doing great job managing the species outbreak, and John Hurst is looking at the stories in the national news. Morning, Scott. Good morning. So, how many cases are there now across this country? Okay, so 40 doesn't sound like a lot, because it's so easily transmissible. It's a massive concern. So that's John Hurst, the CTV National News. Looking at Michael Jackson's 3 children and forever in which time more than a decade. And why that was, and we'll move on for the 3rd installment of the Hit Movie franchise.
Show brought to you by Atlanta. Now save up to 20% off selected mattresses and sleep accessories. Your best night's sleep is just a click away at atlanta.ca.
Upgrade to Mazda with the all-new Mazda CX-50, designed to venture off the beaten path. With standard five-active all-wheel drive, responsive driving dynamics, and all the cargo space you need for your adventures. It's always been with remarkable style, and two-wheel drive and fast and connected services included for Roadster, and an unlimited mileage warranty. Upgrade to Mazda and test drive the CX-50 at your
us with the location here. We've got Oregon, Remington, and Machine Shop in Phoenix, Pennsylvania. And what the restaurants look like, we'll get us services. And you can make reservations on the website as well. Restaurantmetros.ca.
Hey, adventurers, need luggage for your next trip. Right now, Bentley is offering incredible deals on
you.